You did it. I'm proud of you. Every time with that intro, applaud him. If you're watching the video or the stream, applaud him right now.
I do deserve applause every time. I think that is
I think that's
just standard. Everyone should praise my singing.
So today's episode of the DawnCast, the greatest cast of Dawns that there is, the number one Dawn of the End podcast that there is,
You're not wrong.
We're also the number one Battle Royale podcast.
Say you're incorrect there.
Just kidding, we're not the number one Battle Royale podcast.
We don't even talk about Battle Royales. Okay.
But anyway, we're going to be doing our top fives. We picked some, I guess you would say, interesting categories, ones that I think everybody kind of can, you can take part in and, let us know in the comments yours, because they're things that kind of everybody are into. I mean, give or take maybe a couple things, but...
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you guys can have fun down in the comments with this,
Yeah, and I think we should hop right into this,
So, number one, TV shows.
Yeah,
top
we're
5 TV shows.
Yep. Do you want to just alternate who goes first? You want to take the first one here for TV shows?
I can take the first one. So my number 5 TV show of all time, and it's a show that's probably unknown to you, and probably a lot of people are going to hear this, but my number 5 TV show of all time is a show from back in the day. It's called Wings. And it was just like a sitcom about these brothers that own an airline in a small airport, and I don't know, man, it's just a show I used to watch with my older brother and stuff, and
Okay. That's
cool, it's like nostalgia. It's nostalgic. That's all. It's like a nostalgic show, and it had some spin-offs and stuff that I like too. So it spawned its own little multiverse, because it's a show that itself, it was a spin-off from I don't know how it worked, but it was in the same universe as the show Cheers and the show Frasier, and that's what I always thought was cool, is that they all were intertwined, and they would sometimes have crossovers of the characters and stuff. It was more Cheers characters into Wings, but I don't know, it's one of those shows, even now to me, it still kind of holds up, you know what I mean?
Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. You're right. I have never heard of that show, but that's fine. Because I don't think you've watched my number 5.
Hold on, and you guys should appreciate that one, because after that, pretty much 3 of the next 4 animes.
Oh, that's fine, because I'm starting straight off with an anime. My number 5 is That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. It's a very fun anime to watch. It's a very the main character is very much just OP in it, but it's just a fun show. It gets a giggle out of me, and I'm gonna be honest, I was struggling. I could not think of other TV shows I watched making this list. So, but That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime I'm happy to put that at my number 5. I had a lot of fun watching that show. I watched it with my brothers, actually.
Yeah, so you kind of get what I'm talking about with Wings, and where you watch it with your brothers and you just kind of have good memories of that show.
Absolutely, and That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime is, I think, still going on, still being made. So
produced.
I think they're working on season 3 right now, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh, it's good. And for Wings, if anyone ever wants to check it out, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but I'm pretty sure it's on Peacock. If not, you probably find it, because it was big on NBC and USA when I was out. It's obviously a 90s show, so understand there's some time period stuff there, but I mean, it's still a good show. Alright, are you listing your number 4, or you want me to go on with number 4?
I figure you'll take your number 4, and then I'll take my number 4, and then the next list
number 4 for me
change it up.
Would be Cowboy Bebop. It is probably one of my favorite shows and just favorite animes. It's not too long, so if it's your first anime, or if you're someone just getting into anime, it's great, because it's a good story. It doesn't follow a lot of anime tropes that people tend to find annoying, which is refreshing. The female characters aren't treated like quote unquote waifus or whatever. They're treated as like actual developing characters. You know, they have like it was one of the first shows to have like there's a character named Ed, and she's like I would say she's gender fluid. It was one of the first shows to kind of have like a positive portrayal of like gender fluidity and things like that. So it's really cool. Like, and the stories are just gripping. Like, it's crazy. They can take a character in one episode, and if that character dies in the same episode, they somehow make you feel like it was the most tragic, like important, like death in the show, even though it's just some like side character for a one-off episode. Like, it's just really well written, and like, you know, I think I started watching it a little bit after I got into my number one show. So like, it
okay,
you know, it was like my second big experience for like anime.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Cowboy Bebop, another show that I probably need to watch at some point. I just haven't. But I've heard a lot of good things about it. My next pick here, it's I don't know how well it holds up on a rewatch. I had a lot of fun watching it the first time around, and it's WandaVision. And the reason it takes number 4 for me is fairly simple. It's just the suspense when watching that the first time, and like trying to figure out what was going on, and the twists and turns that were in it, and you know, for it being one of the MCU TV shows that have been pretty, like, the MCU TV shows have been pretty rough lately, but it being the first one that they made, it came out absolutely beautifully, and it was just an amazing experience that I don't think is going to get recreated anytime soon. The suspense I felt watching that.
That's nice. Like, it's always nice when you have a show like that where it's, you know, you just feel like you like it. You get what I mean? Like, you can just be into the show and like enjoy it.
Absolutely, and just try and figure out what the heck is going on.
With what?
With a lot of different things. That show is full of twists and turns, and I don't want to spoil anything in case people want to go watch it. But you know, it's about Wanda Maximoff, or the Scarlet Witch, you know, and Vision being in like an old 50s sitcom in the first episode, and it keeps advancing into different eras of sitcoms, and you're trying to figure out like why they're in this sitcom and stuff.
Okay,
I'm trying to be a little vague.
Like, I've never watched the show, but I have heard good things about it. Like, I'm not too big into, like, no, I'm not big into superheroes, but I don't watch a lot of that stuff as it is, so it's not that show specifically. It's just...
It's the only MCU show that's on my list here. I just, like, it was my favorite of the MCU shows, and I really had a fun time with it, so that's why it became my number 4. Would you like to share your number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 show, another anime, is Demon Slayer. And it's probably my favorite, like, more recent modern anime, just because, like, the artwork's, like, beautiful. I love the story, the characters, like, the show overall is just great. Like, I mean, if you're someone who's watched it, like, it's one of the only animes where the fights don't, like, how do I put it? They're over the top, but not in the same way as, like other the shows with combat. You know what I mean? Like, the fights aren't like, they go quick like how a sword fight would go. They're not overly drawn out, or like, unless it's like an OP like boss, but that makes more sense, you know?
Mm-hmm. See, I agree that that's a really good pick, and it almost made it on my list, because that's what kind of fought for my number 5 with Reincarnated as a Slime. So, like, you know, I have watched Demon Slayer, and I did enjoy that anime very much.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, I think. Or, well, it is one of my favorites, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's a good show.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good number 3. I agree. My number 3 is probably the most basic pick in all of history. The Office. You know,
I mean, I get it.
I put it at number 3 because it's, there's a reason it's as hyped as it is. Like, there's a reason people talk about it as much as they do. It's a good show. It has good storylines. It kind of falls out around season like 7, 8-ish, when Michael takes his departure from the show. But
I get that because I watched that show, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and it did take a big hit when he left, because he was a big part of that show.
He was pretty much the heart of it. He's my favorite character in the show, so it was hard to watch him go. But it doesn't taint what came before it, and what came before it definitely cements it at my number 3.
I mean, yeah, and it's probably, I would be honest, if we were doing top 10s, I would put The Office in probably my top 10.
Then, that's fair. That's fair. I'm excited. It's interesting to me that none of our top 3s have overlapped at all yet. I
think
top
number
5s
two
have
number
overlapped.
2 is probably going to overlap, because my number 2...
I feel like it is.
And I mean, if you know me well enough, it is pro wrestling as a whole, and it was close for one. It's just this other thing has my number 1 because just how much it, like, I think I get hyped up for it.
Flipped here.
Yeah, I think we do. But my number 2 is definitely pro wrestling as a whole, and the only reason I say that is because there have been periods where I've dropped out of pro wrestling, where with my number 1 I've never dropped out of it, if that makes sense. Like, I've always stayed with it, even when the only thing I had was the thing that a lot of people don't like. You know what I'm talking about, where the main character becomes a child again. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I know it's about to come up. And I'm going to just go ahead and throw out my number 2 because I feel like it connects to your number 1 a little bit. My number 2 is the original Dragon Ball. And this was hard for me because I didn't want to put, like, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. I didn't want to put all of them on the list. Now, I didn't want to, like, just put Dragon Ball as a whole, technically. So I went with my favorite one of all of the series of Dragon Ball, and that was the OG Dragon Ball. And that was a hard decision because Dragon Ball Z was the first one I watched. It was my first anime. It was the anime I grew up with. But I feel like I had so much fun watching Dragon Ball for the first time. The humor hit for me. The fights were very fun. I loved the more like martial arts feel of them. The World Tournament sagas were so fun every time.
They were.
Getting to see him fight King Piccolo was so amazing. Heck, even the first saga where he's, they're chasing the Dragon Balls and dealing with Pilaf. Even though Pilaf doesn't feel like this grand, like, world-ending villain, he's still such a great opener villain, you know?
No, yeah, he definitely, as a starter villain, he's really good. Like, mad respect to Emperor Pilaf, really quick, guys. Let's just show some love for Emperor Pilaf.
Yeah. So yeah, original Dragon Ball takes my number 2 personally.
And for me, like, I will say, on a side note here, my 1 and 2, like, I would say they're interchangeable.
See, I feel about the same way.
Because
once again, I know it's about to happen.
It's one thing I will say about pro wrestling, and it's something that if you're a wrestling fan, you know, that, like, no matter how bad your day is, no matter what, like, wrestling is always there. You know what I mean? Like, if you're having a bad day, you can just go watch, like, a match, you can watch some old clips, you can go see what's, like, going on currently. Like, there's always something to just make you forget about all the garbage, and, like...
Well, let's, go on. Take your number 1. I feel like I know what it is.
My number 1, and I'm going to do it a little different than you, is the entire series as a whole of Dragon Ball. But that's because of how long and how much of the content I've consumed, and I have a reason for that, is if you sit there and you watch the original Dragon Ball and you get all the way to Super, it's just insane to think that he was a kid living on a mountain and now he's squaring off with, like, gods. You know,
No,
that's why the series as a whole, I don't care what people think about Super's writing or why there's those diehard Z fans. I love the series as a whole. I even like GT, even though at this point we don't even know what the status of that actually is. But I
would still like to see Toriyama's take on GT.
I would like to see Toriyama's take on GT also. I think it would be the best take on GT. Because I think he could do, he already basically has implemented little things here and there from GT in, why do I always walk through these mines? He already has, but no, it's just been the show. The first time I saw that show, I don't know what it was. Some of it, I think it was the whole idea of, I'm allowed to watch this show where, people are, beating the heck out of each other, and, my mom's not stopping me, and it's a cartoon, and, I'm just allowed to watch it, and it just became my thing. And then it was, I watched Dragon Ball Z first, the original Toonami run, and then I got into GT, or not GT, I'm sorry, Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball came out after, way later, and I got to watch that, and I love Dragon Ball. So I agree with you. It's a really well made series.
Yeah. Well, once again, I think really you could take your pick for any of the Dragon Ball series, and I wouldn't argue with that being someone's favorite. And you taking the whole series and getting to talk about that is great, because I got to highlight Dragon Ball like I wanted to. So it works out for me that you picked that as number one, because it gave us another talking point for Dragon Ball as a whole, and I love that.
And I just love how different each Dragon Ball show is. You know what I mean? Dragon Ball is an adventure show. And you get to see Goku kind of develop as a martial artist. Dragon Ball Z is this intergalactic fighting show where you get to see him develop with his power. And then Dragon Ball
and he becomes
Super,
more just superhero-esque.
Yeah, he's more of a superhero. In Dragon Ball Z, you are right. He's he's closer to a superhero. And then Dragon Ball Super, he goes on to the level of a god.
Straight up a god.
And then if you want to include GT, if you want to count that as an alternate reality in that, he's also almost becoming the level of a god. So it's just it's great. I love this series, and it's just something I don't know, I can watch it a million times through, and I still find all the jokes funny, everything, still get a smile on my face when they first meet Roshi. I don't know anyone who isn't happy at that.
See, and here's what I meant about, I think we flipped our top 1 and 2. It's because my number 1 is pro wrestling as a whole. We haven't heard that. And the reason I put it at number 1 over Dragon Ball for me personally is because when I got into Dragon Ball, I was, like Dragon Ball Z and stuff, I was still a kid. But I've been watching wrestling since I've been born. And some of my, earliest memories are watching things like the Royal Rumble, watching John Cena come back at number 30 in 2008.
Great Rumble, by the way.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
It's one of the best Rumbles.
As someone who's watched every Royal Rumble, one of my favorites. So, there's just so much wrestling for me, and wrestling's something where I did, like you said, I did, grow out of it at a certain point, and I had to drift back to it later on, but it'll always have those early memories and hold a spot in my heart, and it will always be my number 1, no matter how rocky the road gets with wrestling.
No, yeah, and I think you understand my point of no matter what is going on in your own life, wrestling is always a good escape.
Absolutely.
That's why I said for me, 1 and 2 on that are just very, very interchangeable. I
agree, and I think that's why we have the flipped 1 and 2s, because I think we're both about on the same page there.
Yeah. Alright, are you ready to do movies?
Yeah, I think we're ready for movies. I think this is a great follow into movies here. And can I take the first pick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. See, I wanted to open up my list with a well, there's actually a couple horror movies on my list, but my number 5 and a horror movie that I didn't expect to get so much enjoyment out of is Happy Death Day, which is about a girl who gets trapped in essentially almost like a demented version of Groundhog Day, where every time she like wakes up on her birthday and dies, she, every time she dies on her birthday, she wakes up back on her birthday, and it's a very fun movie with a great twist at the end, and you like amazing character development.
Okay.
In that movie.
You should check it out.
So it's just a really fun movie to watch, and I watched this movie honestly not too long ago with a group of friends, not expecting it to be as good as it was, but it was honestly, like it instantly took one of my favorite spots as a horror movie.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but I'll give it a look one time. I've never heard anything like really about it. I know what it is because I saw the previews. I remember the previews. It's just
really good movie. It's worth the watch. It really is, in my opinion.
Alright, my number 5 movie, and if you've seen this movie, you understand why I put it on the list, is Pokemon, the first movie.
I don't think I've watched that movie, actually. I don't think I've watched
and
the first Pokemon
if
movie,
you I was around in Pokemon Mania, and if you just ever saw that movie, it was great. Like, it still is great. I don't know, the story was cool. It was back during the original 150, so we didn't have all these different Pokemon. So, like, the story felt a lot more personal when, like, Mewtwo clones the trainer's Pokemon and is using his, like, army of clones to fight the real ones. Because, like, you pretty much identify every Pokemon in the movie. There was nothing, like... And, I don't know, it had, like, a good soundtrack, and when I was a kid, it was just, like... A lot of people, like, from back then, they'll say, like, Pokemon the 2000, but for me it was that one because, like, I don't know, like, it was, like, the first Pokemon movie, and, like...
It's funny, I actually have a story about this movie, even though I haven't watched it.
That's wonderful. We'll hear your story in just a sec, I guess.
Yeah, go on.
But that, like, I don't know, and it's like, I guess some of it's nostalgia, but it was like a movie I remember. I think my mom rented it for me one weekend, and I think I watched it the entire weekend, just over and over and over, like, because it's just one of my favorite movies.
That's great. See, that movie has one distinct memory with me, or at least like a story about that movie has a distinct memory with me, and it's probably the reason I've never seen the movie, to be honest. But when my brothers were younger, they were up at our grandmother's and they had a VHS tape of that movie, and for some reason or another they were fighting over it, right? And my grandfather got so fed up with them fighting over it that he smashed the VHS tape over his knee.
Wow.
And that's probably why I've never seen the movie, so...
I mean, it's good. If you get a chance to watch it, I would.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'll check it out.
You can do your number 4 now, or...
Sure, I'll do my number 4. So, my number 4, once again, another horror movie. There's like 3 horror movies in a row on this list. But, it's Cabin in the Woods. And Cabin in the Woods is, it was watched with that same group of friends, actually, which is funny that both of those movies ended up on the list. But it's almost like a mockery of a horror movie while still, like, holding true to the horror aspects of it. Where it's about a underground facility that has to, like, cause, has to essentially make horror movies happen. So they have to essentially almost kidnap, but it's more like trick a group of, like, teens to come to a cabin in the woods to enact a horror movie. And they have to, like, choose the way that they die via, like, a basement, and they use different things to, like, trick them into doing one thing or another and make them fit stereotypes.
Okay.
It's a very fun movie. And young Chris Hemsworth's in it.
Alright, sounds interesting. I think I've actually heard of that one. Because, like, a lot of people talk about it now. Like, it didn't get it wasn't very big, like, people kind of pooped on it when it came out, but, like, looking back, people realize how clever it actually is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful movie.
No time for mercy.
My number 4 is like a movie you probably never seen it, which I wouldn't expect you to. It's like one of those coming of age teen movies though. It's called Dazed and Confused. And it's just a movie like I watched it like towards the end of my high school years, and like I don't know, like I watch it every now and then, every couple years if it's on, or like if I have a copy or something. But it's just like one of those good like coming of age stories, and it's like a lot more funny than it is like I don't know, they go a little more on the like I wouldn't say like they don't do anything like edgy or like that, but like the humor is a lot more like I would say adult than something like Breakfast Club or something like that. Not to say that that's a bad movie or anything, but like it's just I don't know. It has a lot more fast pace, and like the stuff they do in that movie, it's stuff like even if you didn't like really go to a big high school or anything, it's stuff that like if you've ever just hung out with your friends and messed around or done stuff, you can kind of relate to certain situations, and like it's a very relatable movie. Yeah, and it has a great soundtrack from like the 60s and the 70s, and like it's a good movie. Good movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another one I might have to check out at some point then.
You're gonna love my number 3 and my number 2, I guarantee it. Actually, you might like all mine, but I know you're gonna like the number 3 because you're not gonna see it coming.
See, number 3 for me is another horror movie because I've been on a horror kick for the past like 8 years of my life. Like as soon as I started watching them, I was like I could not stop watching them. But this was the horror like the reason this is picked is because it introduces one of my favorite horror villains of all time. But also just it was the first franchise, like it's a part of the first franchise of horror movies I ever got confident enough to watch. And it's my number 3 pick is Friday the 13th 2. The one that introduces Jason Voorhees.
That's a good one though.
Absolutely, and I don't know if I really need to say too much about it. Like, I don't know anyone who, like, there's not many people who haven't watched the Friday the 13th series. But, it introduces one of the most iconic slashers of all time. It was really... I'll get to that, like, before my number 1. I'll do, like, a little bit of honorable mentions for other things, but, it definitely, like, just Jason Voorhees is my favorite slasher of all time. And Friday the 13th was the series that brought me into it, and picking between them is hard, so I just went with the one that introduced Jason.
So that was your number 3, right? My number 3,
your number 3
is a very quaint little movie that only, I think, a certain, like, I would say, like, you pretty much have to be a wrestling fan to watch this movie. Like, it's called Ready to Rumble. And people hate this movie a lot. People hate this movie a lot. But I think it is a tongue-in-cheek comedy. Like, if you understand it, like, it's not meant to be taken as serious as I think some people take it. Like, it's more meant to be, like, if you get it, it's kind of them poking fun at wrestling fans in a way. Like, I don't know, but, like, I think some of the problem with the reception that movie has is even though obviously the other wrestling movies of better caliber didn't come out yet, I think what the problem was is people were expecting like this high caliber like wrestling movie, and it was mostly supposed to be like a slapstick with David Arquette. But I love that movie. I think it's funny. Like
David Arquette as a whole, fucking love that man.
It's nostalgic, obviously, to see the like WCW stuff, especially because that was like the very end of WCW. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of just like, for its time, like funny comedy actors and stuff in it because they were all people like kind of in the like comedy movies at that time. It's just a fun movie to watch, especially if you are a wrestling fan. You know not to take it so seriously. It's a fun movie. I like it. It's just about these two wrestling fans who basically get themselves involved in the world of wrestling and like in the most over-the-top way, and it's just funny. It has David Arquette, and yeah,
that's the best selling point. Is David Arquette. But I have a question for you now after
Yeah.
hearing that, and that's is there any chance we could just do a Ready to Rumble watch party at some point?
We should.
Like, well, that would be so fun. Can we just do that?
Should.
Like
Definitely should.
like watch Ready to Rumble and then stream us talking about it as we're watching it.
I'd be down.
That would be so fun. With that being said, I'm gonna lead right into my number 2, and you know, my number 2 in the TV shows was Dragon Ball. So, you know, my number 2 here is Dragon Ball Super Broly. What the hell? You know, why not? No, there's a very specific reason it's my number 2. Other than just being a great movie to begin with, and especially as a Dragon Ball fan, a great movie, it introduces, it makes my favorite character in all of Dragon Ball canon. Which is...
What's nice about that movie is it makes, like, 3 characters canon.
It does make 3 characters canon, but one of them is my favorite Dragon Ball character of all time, and that's Gogeta. So obviously I'm going to love this movie. And it was a great representation of Gogeta. It was so fun. The animation style was interesting, but you kind of get used to it after a little bit, and it's very, very nice, and it's very pretty. And just seeing the clashes between Gogeta and Broly is insane. So I absolutely loved this movie.
What I didn't expect was help out there from
And it genuinely made like the inner kid in me
I meant no insult.
just erupt. I loved it.
War with themselves. I've never known them to care for outsiders. Whatever your business,
Do you want to take your number 2?
My number 2, going off of my number 3 a bit, and it's on the complete opposite end of the same, but of the same type, is The Wrestler, starring Mickey Rourke. I mean, it is just a wonderfully made movie. It shows like the actual like tough stuff wrestlers go through, like once they're no longer big stars and things, are like what they can go through. It's like the cinematography is amazing, like the story is just well told, the ending is like ambiguous. I don't know, like the whole movie is just a well-made package, and if you're a wrestling fan, you love it. There's a lot of indie wrestlers in it. The wrestling choreography and the scenes is like wonderful. There's a lot of like nods to like Ring of Honor and stuff in it. So like, I don't know, I just, and it, like a lot of the wrestlers in the movie were guys I was seeing in indie promotions at the time when it came out. So like,
You know,
it was just a great movie. It's something you should definitely take the time to watch. Yeah.
We're going to have to add that to the list. We're just going to do a wrestling movie.
And it almost led to that, to Mickey Rourke getting a WrestleMania match. Almost. If his agent wouldn't have pulled him out of it, he was going to face Jericho at that Mania.
Yeah, that's the time that he was like, they were like genuinely afraid that Jericho was just going to genuinely beat him up, right?
Yeah.
Or yell louder. That's fine too.
Yeah.
Just like I was saying.
What a grand time.
Alright, are you ready to say your number 1?
I'm ready. I'm ready as I'll ever be, and my number 1 is the thing that got me into superhero movies. My first superhero movie as a kid, and it was Iron Man, the first Iron Man, 2008. That movie was so fun to watch, just genuinely. It started the MCU. You get introduced to Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. It was my first time seeing Robert Downey Jr. in a movie. It was just so fantastic, and you know, it kind of led to a trend of like superheroes just fighting like different versions of themselves, like different people with the same powers as themselves, that you saw a lot, but where it was the first one to really do it, where it started the trend, it was very fresh when you first watched it, and very fun, and we wouldn't have the MCU without it, so it has to take my number 1 as my favorite movie of all time.
I mean, it's not like, I'm gonna be honest, I've never seen it, but I've heard it's a good movie, like...
Fair enough.
I don't watch a lot of superhero stuff, like I said. So, but
oh yeah, no, that's where me and you differ a lot on like our like that's one thing I think me and you do differ a lot on with our like fandoms and stuff. Is I'm very into like superhero movies.
A moment, Giona.
What you? But a word of warning.
yeah, and I get it. Like, so my number one is a movie that I saw recently in theaters, and it's just it's kind of recent, but I had a lot of fun watching it, and it's one of the like most fun movies I had watching. Like, I can't remember like the last time I had that much fun going to a theater, and like it was because I was with friends. We were in IMAX. But my favorite movie, like probably my number one, is Dragon Ball Super Superhero.
Oh, fun! You went with the other Dragon Ball Super movie.
And yeah, and that wasn't on purpose or anything like with yours. It's just
no, we didn't talk about this at all.
No, we definitely didn't, because I didn't know. Like, we literally did not share lists, nothing. But for me, that movie has to be like, how do I put it? It's just like, it's nostalgic. You get to see Gohan finally get another breakout. We get to see Cell back in a way. We get to, you know what I mean? We get some new cool characters. We get to follow Pan. It's like, it's got that slice of life of Dragon Ball with the action of Dragon Ball Z, with the modern characters of Dragon Ball Super. It's like all the three series together, like in one. And I don't know, I just had a lot of fun with it. I love that movie.
Oh, and that's absolutely fair. It was a great movie. I really enjoyed Gohan. Gohan is one of my favorite characters of all time. So getting to see him get that buff again is absolutely lovely and fantastic. So I completely agree with that as a number one pick. I loved that movie as well. It just didn't make my list. I totally forgot to do the honorable mentions that I said I was going to do, which was going to be the Scream franchise as a whole. But
no, it's
fine.
It's okay. I get it. So I think I did actually have an honorable mention myself, because there was something I had originally as my number 5, but I swapped it out. But I can't for the life of me remember what it was now.
It's fine. Well, I think you get to start off video games, man.
Video games? My number 5 video game. So, this was like a tough list for me to do, really. Like, I'm going to be honest, guys. My number 1, I think you already know my number 1. I've said it before to you. But the rest of these were like, they weren't easy to decide, you know? Like, I had to sit there and I had to really think about, like, what my top, like...
Yeah, I agree. I had about the same issue, I think. I've talked to you about a lot of these on my list, but...
Number 5 is going to be... It's kind of a little bit... Like, it's... How do I put it? So, it's a series, but I'm not including the first game, because the first game's not that good.
So you're combining 3 into 1 already.
But 2 and 3 are like good games, are amazing, and that is Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku 2 and 3. Those games, wonderful games on the Game Boy Advance. Like, probably one of the best.
How did I not put a single?
Like, if you want to, like. If you want like a almost true Dragon Ball experience, like RPG experience on a handheld, that's the best you're gonna do. Like, and those games, like, they're so good. Most people compare Kakarot to those, so that just tells you like how good those games were with the way they were made. It was essentially like the depth of like Pokemon games, but in a Dragon Ball game. It was really fun. There was like Easter eggs. They incorporated the movies and stuff. It's just the first one, they didn't have as much content, so they added stuff that just, like, wasn't even in the thing, like, you know what I mean, like...
Yeah. No, I've seen people play it. I've never played it myself personally, and that's why I don't think I could put it on my list, so...
What's your number 5?
Oh, my number 5. It's Red Dead Redemption 2, the game that I probably talked to you the most about how much I didn't want to buy it, and then ended up wanting to buy it.
I'm gonna be honest, that gets an honorable mention for me because that and its first one were literally battling with the Legacy of Goku games for like that 5 spot.
See, it took my number 1. My number 5, not my number 1. Nowhere near my number 1, sadly. But just story-wise, I think it is the best video game of all time. It got tanked so hard by its online. But story-wise, best game.
Oh, it's an amazing story, no doubt.
I've never felt as emotional as I have playing through that Red Dead Redemption 2 story for the first time. I cried multiple times.
I got tears. I wasn't like crying, but my eyes were watering for sure.
And my PlayStation made me replay every mission that made me cry every time because it decided it wanted to try to light itself on fire. But it was an amazing game. It takes my number 5 hands down, and I'm happy with it. What's your number 4?
My number 4, and it's going to be kind of an interesting choice here because it's probably a game you also haven't played, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo.
I have
Wonderful
played that
game. Oh, you have played that game. That game is wonderful.
Yes,
it's probably the best co-op Turtles game, and like you can sit there, play it, beat it, and like you'll want to go back and play it again. It's just that fun. Like I don't know. I love that game. Me and my friend like used to play the hell out of it as kids, and like it's one of those like I have like fond memories of it. And anytime I can play it, if it's like on like an online service added into a collection, I always take the time to go play it because it's really good.
That makes sense.
They have the co-op beat 'em up like formula perfect on that game.
Absolutely. No, Turtles in Time was so fun. I've played that one with my brothers. So. But my number 4 here, it takes, see, the reason it's my number 4, and the reason it beats Red Dead Redemption 2 is actually for, nostalgia factor, and that's, it's the best Call of Duty of all time. It's Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 to me was just the perfect COD. It had the best multiplayer, the best zombies. People will argue with the zombies thing. I genuinely believe it is the best zombies ever, hands down. The only map I didn't enjoy on that game was Die Rise, and that's because Die Rise did kind of suck. I'll admit that. A lot of people will give hate to Transit. I think Transit is overhated. I think it was a very ambitious map for its time, and the fog's not as bad as people make it out to be. But the reason it genuinely takes number 4 for me, and not like the reason it's not flipped with Red Dead Redemption 2, is because there is days and days worth of memories of me, my brothers, and our friend Tony hanging out, listening to music, playing 4-player co-op zombies, just hanging,
Yeah, I get that.
And there is nothing better than that, to be honest. So I had to give it number 4.
She'd yell at me for that clunky verse and make me play till my fingers.
No, and I get that. The games like that are always nice when you have those kind of like
Finish the Weeping Dawn.
those kind of memories where it's like connected to like playing with other people, or because I have games where if we're doing a top 10 I can mention, it's just a lot of what I'm mentioning today is more on the ass. Well, actually I think my number 1 falls kind of in that category.
Absolutely.
But
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Black Ops 2 is the reason I do COD content now. Like, that has to be understood. Like, they give Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Did I say Black Ops 4? I didn't mean to say Black Ops 4. Anyway, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is the reason I play Call of Duty still to this day, just because I enjoyed it so much that I will always hold faith in that franchise.
I get that.
Anyway.
And I've only heard good things about that game ever, so... For me,
Yeah, I know
my
that's
number...
the Call of Duty that you kind of skipped.
My number 3 game now, yeah, and I did skip that one. It's a game I play often. It's probably the main game I've ever played from my childhood, or just ever, is A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. Probably have a lot, like, more nostalgia with that game than anything. And when it was like my first taste of like open world or like fantasy or adventure, you know, things like that. And like as a kid, I thought Link was just the coolest character. You know, he's this like little elf guy kid, like fighting this big bad wizard and like saving the day. And it wasn't, you know, I liked Mario, but it was different because like Mario, I couldn't relate to Mario the way I could to Link as a kid. Like, you know, everybody has that character when they're a kid. They all like.
Girl, she eats our food. Raph, lock her up.
I
Like-
mean, yeah, historically, you were definitely a pointy hair, a pointy-eared blonde kid with a green pointy hat, right?
I was. So
Oh,
I got
okay,
that
good.
surgery
I
to
thought
fix
so.
my ears.
Yeah. I'm a dick.
A gathered herd of the devils would indeed be disruptive.
Yeah, but that's my
Well,
number 3. Just, I love that game. I don't know. I can like just remember like going to rent it and stuff before I ever actually owned it, and just how hyped I always was every time I got to play it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
I literally
I've
beat that
honestly
game all the
never played a
time.
Zelda game.
Halcyon isn't here.
Well, that one specifically is on the SNES games on the Switch, so if you do have the Switch online, it is tryable for you.
Okay. I might try it at some point. Who knows? My number 3, and you might be surprised it's not higher on my list, but I don't know. It's Minecraft. You know, the sandbox game where you can do literally anything. Like, you know, I've been playing Minecraft since it was in since it was 2010, so like a year after it went to early access and stuff. I remember when my aunt brought over her computer and showed me and my brothers, the little block game that you could break trees and stuff on, and just being hooked ever since. I remember we had to buy it on our home. We had to buy it on our desktop, but it wouldn't run on our desktop because we had such a bad home desktop. Because it was like the desktop was still from like 2003, 4-ish. So we had to use my brother's laptop to actually play it, and we had such great worlds on there, and just so many memories are built up of Minecraft. And over the years, I kind of became a walking tomb of knowledge for that game. But yeah, it lands at number 3 for me.
Would you?
No, and I get that. I mean, Minecraft is a wonderful game. I play it from time to time.
Sylvanus' blessing upon you. And
I can't say anything bad. I mean, I don't know how you're going to crap on a game that's like the best-selling game of all time.
Absolutely.
And I like to build little silly houses on there, so, you know.
You like building castles.
I
Don't
do.
lie.
Castles
You always
are
build a castle.
wonderful. So my number 2 game is, and I'm going to give an honorable mention to Skyrim here because these two battled for it. But my number 2 game is Fallout New Vegas. And my reason being,
fair.
and I put it up against Skyrim, the reason being is I find them both to be fun, but to me Skyrim is more fun with mods, where I can play New Vegas without mods and have just as much fun because like the amount of freedom of choice that game already offers just on its own. So it's definitely my number 2 because it's just like, I think I've spent, I don't even know how many hours on that game when it came out to like, even till this point. I have it on my Xbox One. From time to time I just go on there and play in like, it's one of those games I could like drop out of for like a year or two and like go right back and start playing again because I just like it that much. Like, the amount of like dialogue and like stuff is just it's nice because you have so many options on what you can like do and say and like how the game goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite Fallout game of all time, so I completely understand that. It's probably my favorite Bethesda game of all time, if I'm being honest. I guess I'll have to see how I feel about Starfield.
Yeah, I would have said the same, but I haven't played Starfield, and I've heard good things about that, so I want to give that a chance before I say
Absolutely.
what I like. So what's your number 2?
My number 2, and I don't think this is going to shock you one bit. It might shock you that's not number 1, but I don't think it being as high as this is going to shock you. And that's Stardew Valley. How could I not put Stardew Valley on my list and put it as high as I physically could justify putting it? Stardew Valley has been the game that I've been probably obsessed with for the past like 3 years since I first started playing it with you and Hawk back when you got me to, when you actually were like talking to me about buying it. I think you were the one who got me into Stardew. So, you know.
Yeah, because I watched it on SNES Drunk on YouTube, and shout out to SNES Drunk or SNES Drunk. He's a great creator, one of my favorites. I watched it on his because he was doing like modern like games with like a retro feel, and that was like his number 1. And I was watching him play, and I was like, that game looks amazing, and I ended up just going out and buying it, and like, I mean, I have 3 copies of the damn thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm sitting right with you there with it. I have it on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation.
Yeah, I have it on.
Right with you on that 3
I have it on
copies.
Xbox, Switch, and PlayStation. And I've been tempted to buy it on mobile.
Like, it is such an impressive game. I want to get on mobile too. I was looking at that, but it's such an impressive game to be built by one person.
And it has just like everything you kind of could want in a video game.
Absolutely, it's such a beautiful, chill game that at the same time like has one of the most like intense fishing aspects I've ever seen. I've never seen people get beat up by fish more in a video game than Stardew Valley.
That's true.
It's great, and the mines are so fun to explore. It's just, like, it has a great early game for people to get into it, and then as you get into the later game, it actually has a great build for people who have more knowledge to have difficulties with, like, the skull caverns. No matter how good you are, there's always difficulties with the skull caverns, and they added the second island that I'm blanking on the name of right now. I'm blanking on the name of the island, and that annoys me. But there's the island you can sell to and collect the golden walnuts, and get like Mr. Q's shop, and you can fish there more often. And there's like a lava cavern where you have to like travel across lava. It's such an amazingly fleshed out game, and it's made by one person. It's by far the most impressive experience I've ever seen, and I'm in love with it. But
No,
with that being
wonderful.
said, go to your number 1, man. Let's hear what you got.
Oh my god, I failed. So my number 1 game, and this shouldn't shock you, is SmackDown Here Comes the Pain on PS2.
Hey, that's my number 1 too.
Oh, wow,
Let's
our
go.
number 1's tied.
We're divided now. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I have to explain to you that game. It's, oh man, I don't want to fight these guys.
So this is great because we just talk about this one together, where it's both of our number 1s. No, that game is genuinely like as a wrestling fan, it is the most fun experience you're ever going to have with a wrestling game. The arcadey feel is absolutely amazing. The finishers feel so impactful and it's fun to hit. Like, there's no better feeling than hitting a finisher on Here Comes the Pain.
No, yeah, that game is amazing. And it's the season mode. Oh my god, what a season mode.
Absolutely. I think it is the best representation of a wrestling game out there. And I'm so glad that we are tied with number 1 on that one. Because I figured we would be. I was thinking about, I was like, they're probably going to like both be SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. So I was like, maybe he's going to expect me to put Stardew Valley at number 1. I don't know. Do we want to move to wrestlers?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the last thing I have to say about Here Comes the Pain also is if you haven't played that game, play it however you can. but it has one of the best rosters of any wrestling game ever.
Oh, and the mods for it are insane. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the mods for that game, but you can like update the roster to be semi-modern. Absolutely great. And I love that's our number one too, because we're moving into, like, once again, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but we just so happened to have put wrestlers right after that, which is a great coincidence.
Ever since the way you got Korga to release.
And then I would like to start my wrestlers here with someone who's worked his way into my heart recently and has absolutely climbed his way up the ladder of like my favorites. And I can confidently say Chad Gable is my number 5 for favorite wrestlers of all time. Chad Gable is just... There's some sort of like joy I get every time I see him in the ring hitting his like German suplexes and stuff. It's insane, and for how small he is, he's hitting these German suplexes on people like Gunther, and he's hit one on like Drew McIntyre, I think, recently. Like, he is just such a perfect wrestler in my eyes, and they need to push him.
No, they do.
But go on, who's your number 5?
My number 5, and this is going to be kind of odd to have as a number 5 because most people wouldn't have him this low in their top 5, but my number 5, and it's more just because, like, you know, it's not that I don't think he's as good as other people, it's just that, like, his style isn't my overall favorite, like, of wrestling styles, but of the big men, he did it best kind of thing. And that's the Undertaker.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised he's at your number 5. I expected him to be higher for you. I mean, the Undertaker, one of the best. Honestly, you could argue one of the best. No, just is probably the best character, right? Like, can we agree on that? He's one of the best, if not the best character in wrestling.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a fair person. I mean, can't be disappointed. I mean, he made it onto the list.
I mean, just the longevity and just the way he, you know, was as a performer, and he's one of the few, like, legends I don't think will tarnish his legacy.
No, yeah, I think he's pretty cemented where he is, honestly. See, my number 4 here is another person who, not so much as recently, because he's been one of my favorites for a long time at this point. But it's Kevin Owens. It's the KO show. I don't think that there's anyone I would want to put more at number 4 than Kevin Owens for me, personally. I think he fits my list very well. I love Kevin Owens with a passion. I love the stuff he does with Sammy. I loved the Jay stuff this week, honestly. Like, just Kevin Owens as a whole, I absolutely adore.
No, and I get that.
And I was so happy when I got to see him live a couple months back. That was so cool. So what's your number,
my number 4 wrestler? My number 4 wrestler is Chris... Wait, is it? No, hold on. Was it?
He's checking the list.
Hold on. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not, Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
The showstopper.
He's one of the, like, just obviously, like, best of all time, and I don't know, like, I got into him, like, his return run, because I didn't really get to see him in his initial run. Obviously, I've gotten to watch the matches from it, and they were phenomenal, but I saw him in his like, on the second stand, and it's just, like, some of my best memories of, like, the Ruthless Aggression era is a lot of the stuff that he did during that period, and, like, his, like, rivalry obviously with, like, Triple H, Cena, Jericho, like, there's just a lot of like cool stuff he did then, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't afford to stay idle.
No, there's once again, Shawn Michaels is a very like good pick to put on your list no matter what. Same with the Undertaker. Like they're both very like really like fleshed out good picks. So you can't get mad at like Shawn Michaels being on the list. But my number 3 is.
I thought we were on 4.
Yeah, well, we were on 4. I said my number 4.
Oh wait, you
My number
started,
4 is Kevin
huh?
Owens. Yeah, I started wrestlers. I've been alternating.
I got lost. Leave me alone.
You're good. You're fucking good. My number 3 is Randy Orton, the Viper. You know, a wrestler I grew up watching. You know, his stuff with John Cena will always sit in my mind. The like 1,700 matches he had with John Cena.
No, I get that.
You know, his stuff with Evolution and then Legacy, obviously, you know, sticks out. And, you know, he's been wrestling for forever until recently when he got injured. He's been arguably one of the longest, like, loyal people with WWE to begin with.
No,
So,
he
yeah,
really has.
He easily sits at my number 3.
My number 3 is Kenny Omega.
Nice.
What am I to do?
Reason being, he's my favorite modern wrestler, and I just think his matches are insane. He has like a great character that can run between heel and face, and I like definitely see him being like a future Hall of Famer wherever he ends up or goes. Like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone can argue with that. You know, Kenny Omega, I think famously, you know that I like haven't watched too many of his matches. I need to watch more of Kenny Omega's matches. But the stuff I have seen, he's always done well.
yeah, he's definitely
Sorry?
a great, like, what's that?
Well, my number 2, and I think my number 2 is someone that like no one's going to be able to argue with being as high as he is, because if I didn't already have someone who's 100% always cemented into my number 1, that's never going to change. Obviously, this person is a close second, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, I don't think there's a wrestling list where Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't going to be near the top. It's hard not to put him near the top, you know?
No, I get that. I mean, greatest, probably greatest draw in history.
Absolutely. One of the greatest characters in history, and just absolutely fantastic. I'll let you go on and take your number 2.
Okay, my number 2 is, and he's still wrestling now, probably one of the most like like when it comes to longevity and like just overall as a wrestler is I mean, his quality of matches is never really dulled. Even now he puts on bangers in his 60s, and that is the Stinger Sting.
I mean, absolutely fair. Absolutely fair.
I mean, it's hard to argue that he's not one of the best wrestlers ever, you know? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's impressive that he still manages to wrestle as well as he does now. You know, the stuff he's been doing in AEW is absolutely insane with Darby Allin.
that's what I mean, like,
And it's very nice to see. But he's honestly a very impressive person, Sting. Just as a whole. A super
just as a
impressive
wrestler,
person.
like, he's just, I would say, like, honestly, he's in the dispute for, like, just greatest of all time. And I say that because when you look at guys like Hogan and Flair, who were wrestling like during that like the same like time, and they were wrestling in their 60s, they were basically just ruining their legacies, where he's like making his like expand.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. And speaking of ruining what legacies, my number one is Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy will always be my number one. That's never going to change. I love Jeff Hardy with a passion. The man essentially tried to did things that it's a surprise he's alive, let alone able to move and stuff, from the stuff he did earlier in his career. And I know he's had his problems with substances, but as a wrestler and just as a wrestling fan, nothing will ever top the stuff Jeff Hardy did.
No, and I understand
for me
that.
personally.
Because he would be, if we're doing top 10s, he'd be in my top 10,
Oh, and special shout out to his brother. I love Matt Hardy too.
Matt's a
he
great
just doesn't
wrestler,
make my
so
top 5. And I'll let you take your number one, because I feel like I know who it is.
My number one, and yeah, you already guessed it, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, and that's why I was letting you take the talk on that one. I didn't say too much because I wanted you to...
He was my favorite wrestler growing up, and he's still my favorite wrestler now. I think if you watched him or haven't watched him, you've heard his name, and if you have watched him, you understand why he was so great. I mean, not just his wrestling, just his character. He was funny. He'd do it all. When you think of a perfect main event guy, that's him.
Absolutely, and that's why he's my number 2. He deserves his spot as one of the best wrestlers of all time, if not the best wrestler of all time, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that was a fun list. That was a fun list, I think, for both of us, because we both have a lot of wrestling opinions.
Definitely.
Do you want to take the lead on this next one?
Yeah, I'll start superheroes. Especially because I think my superhero is going to be an odd choice to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my number 5 superhero or superheroes.
Are shallow, his wounds deep.
The Powerpuff Girls.
Hey!
And I liked that show when I was younger, and I think it's
ain't nothing wrong with that.
I don't know, they were just they were just good good characters when I was younger. I don't know, the show, you could tell kind of took inspiration from...
Choose your next move carefully.
Now, the Powerpuff Girls are 100% a fair placement on this list. I loved the Powerpuff Girls growing up, as a kid. I know they came out with a weird remake of the Powerpuff Girls, but
that weird live action attempt, but I don't know, it was good. And it was the show also, the thing about it was you could tell the guy who created it took inspiration from anime and stuff. That's what was
yeah,
cool about it. Stop shooting me, nerd.
That's fair. Hey, statues that shoot fireballs. My number 5 is Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff. It's there's not much to really say about that pick. Most of the superhero content that I've watched has been the MCU. And Black Widow just always seemed like a super badass character.
Never break a promise.
So it's really that simple. Black Widow was badass. She became one of my favorite superheroes.
I gotcha. So, I mean, I also have an interesting pick for number 4, kind of in the same vein of the Powerpuff Girls, like of it being kind of a group, and that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were probably my first exposure to like a comic book, like hero type thing as a kid, and I don't know, I just always liked them, like.
Yeah. So I'm starting to notice the trend here of I'm a basic bitch.
Don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I just.
You can't die.
Yeah. So my number 4 is the Hulk. Because he's big, green, and mean, and badass.
You.
I mean, the Hulk is cool. I mean, that game he had on like PS2 and or OG Xbox and GameCube was really good.
Yeah, my favorite version of him is the one from like the 70s or 80s. I don't know which one, where they just painted the guy green. That's my favorite.
Oh, where it was like where they painted yeah, I know.
No, I think honestly the best Hulk is probably Mark Ruffalo, like actor-wise. There's a lot of cool Hulks in the comics. There's Agents of Smash, which is very cool. I really liked that show growing up, so it kind of helped with the Hulk there.
The injured man locks eyes with you. A familiar squirming change.
Who'll be your number 3?
Your minds intertwine. You see his siblings, Andric and Brenna. New recruits. Yours to
Yeah, my number 3 is you're done, right? Like with your
Yeah,
Hulk talk.
that's
Okay.
well, I don't know if it came across, but I said who's your number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 is it probably did. Sorry, I was reading or listening to the lady on the game. It was my fault. So my number 3 is The Crow.
Oh.
And that isn't really to do with Sting. I actually I didn't really make the connection with him and Sting until a little later in my like childhood. It was more I just saw the movie at like a friend's house when I was a kid. And after that I just thought he was like the coolest character because he was like a hero, but he like wasn't a hero. Like, you know what I mean? He was like, because he like protected good people, but he wasn't like your typical superhero. He was like dark and like he was kind of from like, you know, you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is, and this is the closest I get to, like, well, I guess there's 2 people on my list here who are kind of, at some points villains, some points superheroes, but, it's the Scarlet Witch, and, the Scarlet Witch is a character that I've only delved into more recently, on, like the actual comic side of things. But she's such a fun character. She's very overpowered, obviously, with being able to essentially change reality. But that makes her a very interesting villain to try to take care of, and I hope we see more of her in the MCU. I really don't. I really hope that like the mountain falling on her and should I say that? Is that too spoilery? We're just gonna put a spoiler. If you don't want to hear it, skip about 10 seconds ahead. But in Multiverse of Madness, I hope that didn't kill her.
I mean, it's fine. Sometimes you gotta have those spoilers.
Yeah.
As long as you say
who's your
spoiler
number 2?
warning.
Abandon their hosts as soon as they need to. Parasites.
My number 2 is Batman.
Batman.
And that's because I like Batman. I like pretty much everything about Batman. I like most of the Batman movies and cartoons, and I had, action figures. Like, I just like Batman as a character, and
See,
I don't know.
It wasn't exactly Batman, but it was Jason Todd.
So I grew up with the I grew up with like
Go
the
on.
animated series. That's why too. Like,
That's fair. But I'm gonna be honest. There's no DC characters on my list. Like I'm just gonna lay that. But the closest that came was Jason Todd almost overtook Black Widow because I do enjoy Red Hood. But you know, Batman's cool.
no, he's really cool. Go ahead and name yours.
My number 2 is Spider-Man. Now you could really pick most of the Spider-Mans, and it would fit well right here for me. But out of all of them, I grew up with Peter Parker, so I put Peter Parker specifically as my number 2.
Rare as can be.
I absolutely loved, like, even though looking back on them, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies weren't the best. They were very fun as a kid to watch, and I've really loved what the MCU's done with Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think he plays a very good Spider-Man. And just Spider-Man related media has been insane lately with Spider-Man PS4 and then Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 coming out soon, and then the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, and
In silence.
I just can't wait for the next Spider-Verse movie, to be honest. But yeah, that's where my number 2 is Spider-Man.
And well, my number 1 was your number 2, and you basically covered it, so I don't really have to get into my number 1. But my number 1's Spider-Man. Like, you pretty much covered it for me. So
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I mean, yeah, it's what happens when you have overlaps.
That's as I said when we got into this, I think we do like a lot of the same media, and Spider-Man's a great superhero. So it makes sense that he ends up on both of our lists as close to number 1s, if not number 1s. And yeah, my number. Wait, who's your number? Who's your number 2 again? Fuck, I've lost myself.
Batman.
Batman, yeah, I remember. Okay, I'm back. My number 1's Quicksilver.
Okay.
You know, I've always loved speed characters, and very specifically, and I did put a note on the side of this, very specifically, it is Evan Peters' Quicksilver from the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, watching the X-Men movies, that character was so fucking cool. Just listening to listening to music, moving bullets around. Yeah. If I could put time in a bottle, you know, it just like that scene itself is iconic in my brain. And then they just did it again in you know, Apocalypse with the sweet dreams are made of this scene. So 100% it's Evan Peters' Quicksilver as my number 1, hands down.
A fine evening, don't you think?
Well, that's a good one. I mean,
Light shines from
can't
near
go wrong
us.
there.
The breeze caresses our faces. Hideous. All of
Yeah,
it.
do you want me to open up snack foods?
Battle up there, among the tears.
Yeah, you can go ahead because I think I started the last one.
Yeah, it's just kind of ended up weird where I kind of took your number 1 with my number 2. But my number 5 for snack foods, and like foods in general, is just peaches. I can speak. Peaches. I love peaches. They're my favorite fruit. They're absolutely delicious. They go great in a lot of different, you know, pastries. I love peach cobbler. It's my favorite dessert. So peaches as a whole takes my number 5.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. Peaches are good. I mean, I can't say anything about that. My number 5 snack / food is the purple bag of Skittles.
Oh, I do love wild berry Skittles. They're very good. I actually had some DoorDash to me the other day because I'm lazy and didn't want to walk to the gas station across the street. So I had a thing of Mountain Dew DoorDash to our house with some wild berry Skittles.
I see naught but cowards.
Yeah, they're my favorite. Like,
They're so good. They are. I'll agree with that. They're very good. Like,
They rely on strangers' swords when they should be forging their own.
my or it's your turn. Go number 4.
my number 4 is cheese as a whole. It's that simple. It's just cheese. You've heard the story of when I ate a whole block of cheese to spite my brother. It's not just for spite. I just like cheese. I'm a fucking cheese goblin. Especially spicy cheeses. You give me some like habanero mango cheese. Love it.
No,
Ghost
yeah.
pepper cheese. Ugh. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so cheese as a whole. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is chicken and a biscuit crackers.
You don't have to elaborate. I've never heard of chicken and biscuit crackers. Does
It's
it just
an
crackers
Nabisco.
that taste like...
It's like a Nabisco cracker, and yeah, they essentially just taste like they have a chicken seasoning on them.
Okay, that's good. I mean, seasoned crackers are always tasty. Absolutely. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but I could snack on Ritz like all day.
Yeah, they're not like Ritz. I don't know how to.
No, yeah, you're good. I know. I get it though, like seasoned crackers. And
It's like a chicken season, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. See, my number 3 is spaghetti.
So do you want like a 10 or a dove or something? Or?
I love me some spaghetti. Spaghetti and meatballs, one of my favorite Italian foods of all time. Absolutely fantastic. And you can put cheese on top of it, which incorporates my number 4. As I said, I'm a cheese goblin. So yeah, absolutely adore spaghetti.
My number 3, and it's kind of odd for people, is the I like orange chicken.
Orange chicken's really good. You know.
It's my go-to. I eat it a lot. Probably shouldn't,
Yeah.
but the place I get it doesn't use MSG, so.
Okay, well that's good. And yeah, but orange chicken's great. It's one of my favorite Chinese dishes.
Yeah, it always hits the spot.
Absolutely. See, my number 2 is chimichangas. I love me some chimichangas. See, the place I get them from has these great like pork-made chimichangas with a dipping sauce that like is fantastic. Chimichangas are my favorite Mexican dish. So absolutely fantastic.
My number 2 is, and it's mostly just these by themselves, not like ice cream as a whole, is milkshakes. Like, those are my go-to. I love milkshakes. Whenever I go to a place that has milkshakes, I always get a milkshake.
That's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
I don't know, something about milkshakes that just hits the spot.
Yeah, who doesn't like a good milkshake? Do you have a favorite flavor of milkshake?
No, like strawberry, vanilla, like it just varies.
See, I'm like partial to peanut butter. I love me a good peanut butter milkshake.
I don't know if I've had a peanut butter milkshake.
That's wild. That is a wild thing to hear. Get yourself a peanut butter milkshake.
I mean, what are these days?
My number 1 is lasagna, because I'm actually Garfield in disguise. I don't know if you all knew that or not, but yes, I am a big orange
he's
cat.
really Garfield and John fused.
I'm Garfield and John fused, but my
Gone.
favorite thing is lasagna. Genuinely,
Lasagna.
my favorite thing is lasagna. Just because, I mean, it's noodles with meat sauce in between and then cheese on every layer. Who doesn't enjoy that? And there's this great Italian place that I've been to, and it has like a great like sausage lasagna. Ugh. And now I want lasagna.
My number 1, and it's probably the most obvious thing ever, is pizza. Pizza is the best, just snack and food. You can eat it as both.
That's fair.
Does
That's
it
fair.
add the plus in front of it?
I mean, pizza is fantastic. There's a reason that me and my brother eat it every Friday, on Pizza Friday.
There we go.
Yeah, because I guess when you copy and paste from like your contacts or whatever, it adds that plus like.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
So yeah, pizza is a great number
You
one.
obviously don't have.
And fantastic overall. I like both of our lists. I think we both had really good foods on here. You know, I
think they
my
were good
list
lists.
represents me well with you know, the fact that I'm a fucking cheese goblin.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like the majority of the foods on my list involve cheese.
They did. They really did.
I won't lie. Honorable mention, I think, goes to nachos. For me, that definitely almost made it on my list. I love nachos.
I got you.
And I think at the end of the day, the thing that needs to be done here is you need to try yourself a peanut butter milkshake.
I will. I definitely will take
And
that
we
into
need to watch
consideration.
Ready to Rumble and The Wrestler with each other on the stream.
With, like, yeah, it'll be good. Those will be
Absolutely.
upcoming things.
Absolutely. And I think that the audience now knows a lot more about us.
Yeah.
You know.
And you can list your top 5 below if you're joining us on
Absolutely.
YouTube. If you're joining us on Twitch, it's a little too late. I'm sorry. Should have jumped in a little earlier. Remember, if you're on the stream, to follow. If you're joining us on YouTube, sub, like, share, comment, do all that cute YouTube stuff that people do.
And we hope that you all will be joining us next time on the next DawnCast.
Yeah, episode 6 coming soon.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah, as long as nothing comes up first.
Yes, as long as nothing happens. But usually every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you soon.